talking to Brisa De Angulo, who is the founder and co-president, together with her husband, Parker Palmer, who's right up there, of the Breeze of Hope Foundation. And Brisa is really a quite extraordinary person. At the age of 17, she founded the Centro Una Brisa de Esperanza, CUBE, which is the first center in Bolivia to provide free comprehensive services to child and adolescent victims of sexual violence. So thank you for joining us today, Brisa. Can we start with your own story? Tell us a little bit about how you became involved in this work.
Sure. I don't know if this is working, but my story is not a very easy one to tell. I was just like another little child growing up, dreaming about the future. But then an adult got into my path and started raping me and torturing me and physically beating me and he was so good at beating me in places where nobody would see and raping me in ways that, in places or situations where nobody would notice what was going on. I was raped over 80 times and it was hell for more than 8 months. Luckily, my parents were able to bring me to the US. They had no idea what was going on. I tried to commit suicide twice, and by a miracle, I'm still alive. And I found a psychologist that told me, wait, what you're going through, that's called rape. And the guy is almost twice your age. And that's when my parents realized what was going on, and they told me, we'll never go back to Bolivia. And I don't know where I found the courage, and I said, if I don't go back, then he'll win. And I can't let him win. So I went back to Bolivia and started my legal battle. I thought it was the good thing to break the silence, but every day I questioned if that was the best decision I did. First of all, I went to a prosecutor who wanted to put me in jail for breaking the silence and continued threatening me that if I continue talking, then she will put me in jail. Then no lawyer wanted to take my case because, one, I was a woman, and two, I was a child, and it was a lost case. Because in Bolivia, if you're a woman and you're a child, it's your fault no matter what happens. And then I remember going to a forensic doctor who had over 6 male medical students. And as I cry and beg them to please leave the room and just be with the male forensic doctor, they all laughed at me and made fun of me, and each of them made the exam. And then I went to the judges, and it was this whole questioning to what did I do to deserve this? They wanted to answer that question. There must have been something that I've done to deserve it. And then my first trial was declared a mistrial because I wasn't interrogated by my perpetrator. And I decided to go all the way to the Supreme Court to say, wait a second, it shouldn't be my perpetrator interrogating me, maybe the lawyer of my perpetrator. And so they send the case back, said you have to re-listen to the case, but nobody wanted to listen to my case. It jumped for years from one court to another court, and I ended up in the agriculture court, where they handle matters of animals. And I went through 3 trials until at the last trial, my perpetrator escaped and continues to be a fugitive of justice. And that's how I started realizing I'm not the only one, and that my perpetrator took a lot from me. He took my dreams, he took my childhood, but he wasn't going to take my voice away. And that's when I decided to start CUBE.
Tell us about CUBE.
So CUBE started as the only center for children who've been sexually abused, and 10 years later continues to be the only center in the entire country to provide services to victims of sexual violence. We provide free legal, social, and psychological services, and it's a center that is very important in Bolivia. the World Health Organization said that Bolivia has the highest incidence of sexual violence in Latin America. And the government 2 years ago said that 70% of women are going to experience sexual violence in their lifetime. And it's outrageous that we continue to be the only place where victims of sexual violence can go. So while the psychologist takes the victim and provides all the nurturing that that child needs to be able to put the pieces back together and recuperate through a lot of different types of therapy, art therapy, play therapy, trauma-focused play therapy, the social worker works with the system, because it doesn't matter if the child breaks the silence, gets the courage to break the silence, and then goes back to the family who are going to re-victimize, or a school who's going to make fun of her because many of them end up pregnant from the rape, or for X or Y reason, then we're just going to continue destroying this child. So the social worker goes and works with the schools, works with the families to make sure that when the child comes out, she has a whole supporting system saying, we're proud of you. I'm sorry we weren't able to protect you, and now we're here to walk with you. And we're happy to say that thanks to all this support, 98% of the children who go to CUBE are in school and starting college, some of them. And then simultaneously, we have the legal system, the legal team who is taking the case to court, because a big part of us is how to restitute their rights and to get justice. And the government's conviction rate is 2% for sex crimes, but our conviction rate is 95%. So part of what we do is not only provide the services, but how do we change the way children are seen, and how do we change the perspective of what people tend to think of sexual violence, and take all the myths and change laws that are discriminating against children. So we have trained over 70,000 people directly, including judges, prosecutors, police officers. We have gotten a law through that every TV channel in Bolivia has to provide an hour a week so we can talk about sexual violence. So we have access to the media, the TV channels, the radio stations, to newspapers, where we have been able to reach over 1 million people. So our awareness and people knowing what's going on is one of our biggest goals, because only an educated society is going to start making changes.
So we talked earlier about the need to work not just with survivors and in prevention and in justice, a comprehensive approach, which I think Kuwait is really is a perfect example of. But then I understand you decided that the laws weren't working for survivors, and you set out to change those laws. So tell us about that and how that happened.
So the first law that was changed was the one where the perpetrator interrogates the victim. That's how every case was being handled. So there was like a father interrogating the 3-year-old at court, or the uncle interrogating the 5-year-old. When I took my case to the Supreme Court, a law came out saying that that can't happen anymore. So that's the first thing that's read in every case of sexual violence, that the perpetrator can no longer interrogate the victim. And that's when I realized maybe my voice can be a lot more than I thought. And I started doing research, and we took a couple of research that we did interrogating the prosecutors to the Inter-American Commission, and we challenged a law where it pardoned the perpetrator if he married the victim. And this was being used in Bolivia, where a 13-year-old was being forced to marry a 40-year-old so that he would be pardoned from rape and never taken to court for rape. The Inter-American Commission heard us, made really good comments how this was a violation of international law. We went back to Bolivia and we made a fuss. That I'm really good at making a fuss. I get people together and we just bother the government, and a year later they took that law out of the criminal code, so children can't be married anymore.
We should mention that in order to do this work, first Brisa became a psychologist, and then when it was time to take on the Supreme Court and then the Bolivian government in the Inter-American Human Rights Court, she became a lawyer so that she could carry out the suit. And you currently have a case in the Inter-American Human Rights Court.
Yes. So I currently am taking my own case to the Inter-American Court, and I am suing the government of Bolivia for having violated my rights and for not protecting me, but also as an emblematic case of many girls that are going through the system. And I've been offered several times to enter into a friendly settlement, but I'm not willing to do that because I needed to go all the way through, not for me, but for the thousands of girls who are suffering this in Bolivia. Bolivia needs to do something to protect children.
So, Brisa, let's get to the subject now of education, which is the main theme of this summit. We haven't mentioned this yet, but Brisa is also the founder of a school, which she founded when she was 14 and is still managing, and a school that is particularly designed to prevent violence and to support girls and boys in a safe environment. Can you say a few words about that and how this all came together for you, the idea of using schools to promote nonviolence?
So yeah, I started a school when I was 14 years old because my idea started when I was 7. I saw all the kids come in the community with bleeding ears and patches of hair missing because violence was a normal thing in schools. I was homeschooled, so for me that was absolutely outrageous. And I started bringing all the kids to my home to help them do their homework. And at age about 13, I started pushing I had to write a proposal to the government because I had to start a school, a nonviolent school. At 14, the school got approved, but we had no chairs or tables, so I used rocks and tables with the first kids. And it's been 15 years since we had this school, but right now, since I was victimized, I realized that the best way to prevent sexual violence is working with the schools, because statistically, the most dangerous place for a child is the school and home. And the best way to enter the home and be with children in school is working with schools. Through the schools, you can get through the parents. So we work on the prevention area, not only of showing nonviolence, but also what does it mean to be in a culture of peace? And what does it mean to live in an equality system? And so our school is being used throughout Bolivia to show as an example of what it is to work on a gender equality program. We work with we have partnered with health systems and child protection agencies to start detecting people as soon as they're pregnant, because the gender discrimination starts as soon as they find out what gender that child is. Whether that child's gonna be loved, whether the child is gonna be a pain, whether it starts with the mentality of the parents, and then they continue the rest of their life. So as soon as a mother is found that they're pregnant, we start working with the mother and father and family to understand the precious thing that they have inside, regardless of the gender. And then they start learning about the neurophysiology and the damage that violence has. And so the parents become the agents of protecting this precious thing that they have. So it's changing the mentality of how you see children. We're so used to seeing them as objects, to bring them as our image and likeness. And if we think about it, many of us, without even realizing, when a child's born, we come and we change their diapers without even telling them what's going on. We rip their things off. And what's going on that child? Like, adults are here in this society to I'm a part where the adults have to tell me what to do and how to do. But what would it happen if we say, I'm gonna change you now because you're dirty. First I'm gonna lift your leg, then I'm gonna lift your other leg, and then I'm gonna clean you. Or, like, I have to deal with my 1-year-old who hates to be diaper changed. I'm gonna wait here when you wanna be changed, and the little one runs around and then comes and said, okay, I need my diaper changed. But it's that willingness of saying, you are a subject of human rights. You're an agent of your own life. You have to start making decisions since they're born. Or instead of putting them in the car and tying them up, I wonder how I would feel if someone puts me in a car and ties me up and takes me to a place that I don't know. But what if we explain, say, I'm going to put this because it's to protect you, and we're going to go visit grandmama, and then children need to be part of growing up, and we've forgotten that. And we work so hard on making curriculums and so hard on saying this is how we're going to teach them. But what if we get to their levels and see, what do you guys need? Where do you guys want to go, and facilitate that process? So one thing that is crucial in our school is self-agency. They have to be the protagonist of their own lives. They have to be protagonists of their future, of their education, of their nutrition, and parents have to be involved in that. We can't substitute parents. Parents have to be there to be part of their growing up, because these children go back to home. So
thank you so much, Brisa, for sharing your journey with us. You are an inspiration to all of us.